Hi, I am Christi, and welcome to Matrix Matters. And I am so ecstatic to be here today as I debut my YouTube ministry again, Matrix Matters, and to just be here and meet with you guys for the summer. When I asked the Lord on how to do strategy as the world is opening back up, or at least how to implement a strategy to come to you guys today. Because I'm going back to work. My daughter is getting out of school, getting ready to have her first job, and we're just, moving in different aspects of life. And I'm just like, Lord, I have so much going on personally, professionally. How do you want me to implement all of this? And so he gave me a strategy for me to do a few teachings with you guys for the summer. And then I'll be going back to my first ministry on another social media platform for the fall. But I am so ecstatic to be here today. The main subject, if you wanted a title for this particular word today, would be motivational continuous purpose. Motivational continuous purpose. I spent the last year for the first time being online in ministry, and I spent many days like literally crying and wishing like, Lord, I wish somebody would have told me this is, had I gone through this is normal, this is how you're supposed to feel, and you're going to go through some closed doors, and it's going to be some extreme things that happen, but keep walking, keep going. And again, as I asked the Lord, to give me strategy, because I wanted to make sure what I was saying was essential and worth being said, because somebody needed to hear it. And of course, that's why we all walk in purpose, because it's just beyond ourselves. Even though we serve a wonderful God who, in the midst of sacrificing ourselves, he will make sure that we're good, and he will make sure that he gives us great prizes. So it's okay for us to know that the Lord has a good hand. Yes, we want to seek his heart. That's what we're all about, is seeking his heart and implementing a character that looks like him. But yes, God wants to give good gifts to his children as well. So you don't have to feel bad about wanting those gifts. You just have to know that gifts are secondary, and that primarily you have been called, because we are all fishers of men. And it's so funny, because when I asked him about the strategy, and he told me just this summer and just a few teachings, he also gave me fish. And I kept saying, now, Lord, the thing, even though I'm a country girl, the thing that I like to do is eat, and I wash the dishes in the kitchen. I'm not a cooker, and this is not a cooking channel. So why in the world do you want me to cook fish? And then so I started saying, okay, well, Lord connects with us in parables. So this is for somebody, just in case, you feel like you're hearing from the Lord, but you're like, I'm not sure. And I see different things. Sometimes you may see him in numbers. Sometimes he communicates, he backs it up with his word. So, but sometimes the Lord communicates with us in parables. Sometimes he doesn't just come straight out and say, go left, And so I'm like, okay, fish, fish, fish. What does the Bible say about fish? And so then I started thinking about Jonah and the whale. And then once he got out the mouth of the whale, how he started giving word. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Or then, how Peter, was trying to catch the fish, and God told him, you will be fisher of men, instead of, worrying about the fish in your stomach. So I give those words to you because we all have a job to do. But there's 5 things today that the Lord wanted me to tell you. So those 5 steps in reference to continual motivational purpose, or motivational continual purpose, are: number 1, if you have been denied, if you have had some major doors of rejection, and even if those doors were in places and people that you would have never thought, long-term relationships, or God is setting you up for a comeback. So I'm going to tell you the thing that a lot of people will not say, that most religious people will not tell you: cry. I will say have a tantrum, but don't tear too many things. Bring it on back, because we are a child of God, and eventually we cry and we move on. We don't cry and stay in that place. So God always gives us an opportunity to feel. Just because you are a child of God, He's not saying that you have to act like things don't bother you. But when you have faith and you walk in faith instead of by sight, those rejection and those closed doors and those relationships, He wants me to come and tell you, get happy, because there are more relationships to come, and they're going to be better relationships, because they're going to be relationships that think like you, that act like you, and not that your thought process should be put on a pedestal, but He will give you people that are like-minded, that are kindred spirits, that are trying to do the best that they can in the Lord. But I also realize that none of us, we are all still striving for that perfection, and that we're here to help one another. So if the one door closes, know that He has another door or doors. And that's a part of my testimony walking in the ministry this year. He has other doors that are so much better for you. I also feel like it will be remiss of me to tell you, with those doors, closing, He's also trying to make you better. So God is using those doors, He's utilizing those doors also to take away the things that are the foundation of Christi. So Christi can be more like Christy, or to be more like Christ. And so that is for you as well too. We are human, and just because we are called does not mean that we're perfect. It means that a lot of times He's calling us because He's trying to take us out of, as my life coach tells us, that stupor, that wrong attitude, that wrong stinking thinking, a way of thinking, so He can progress us in a way that makes us be, or makes us see, and it makes us implement a lifestyle that shows that we are sincerely His glorious inheritance. If you got rejected, it's okay. It's not a denial in the long term. It's just a delay, because He's working on you so you can get to those better doors that are more appropriate for you. Not that the door that closed was not a good door, and sometimes it may not have been a good door, but that the door that closed was not necessarily where you are in your journey right now, or may not even be in the future, or may be in the future. But He has greater doors for you, that people that speak your own language, that have had similar experiences as you, and can tell you, but I came out on it. I came out on the other side of this. So stay tuned for what God has. I think it would just be remiss of me, instead of just giving you those facts, not to give you some examples and be a little transparent. 2020, I started a ministry in May, and some of the things that I was saying, the content of what I was saying was true to me and what my feelings were, but they were coming off offensive. And sometimes, if you read it that way, could be looked at as unloving to others. But really, all I was saying is that I was hurt, and I was trying to get understanding. But in the midst of all of that, and even looking at myself, I had to assess some pridefulness, you know, um, and some lack of humbleness. Again, those things that God was taking away, those foundations that were not reflective of Him. So it took some time, and I went through some anxiety and some depression, and of course, I know as children of God, we don't claim those things. He says, let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich, but I would be remiss of going through this process and not telling the truth, not expressing the truth, because I think so many times, so many people tell a story that, and we live happily ever after, and we have to tell the journey of life and what it will entail, but to also help you to remember that He's working all things out. Romans 8:28, for our good, for those who love Him and are called for His purpose. So not what I like, not what my preference is, but His purpose. But the thing about it is, He's so good. The things that you're gifted in, the things that you know how to do, God will make it, because we're unique in all different ways and shapes and form in that way. He will make it to where it meshes rather. So it will be something that you like, and it will be something that essentially at first that was like, oh my God, I don't like even being on social media like that, that it really helped save my life in knowing that Christi has something important to say as a vessel of his, as a representation of his, and more importantly, like he gave with me for this message, to be fisher of other men, as I have been fished and netted in. So the things that I wanted to tell you, the doors that open for me, as you saw in my intro, I'm a widow. I'm now a single mom, and I have been a working professional and still am, in almost 20 years of human resources. And so for me, everything in my life was traditional until that happened, until I lost my late husband. And for me, you're left with the question a lot of times, okay, what are you trying to get me to get out of this? Well, those doors that eventually opened, and it was a long journey. It was a great working journey. So it wasn't just one day I just woke up like this, like Beyonce. I would love to say that was the case. And even though it was always destined, because Psalms 139:13 tells us that he knew us in our mother's womb. He always knew that we were going to be called. It's just a surprise to us that it took a lot of work, and it took a lot of discipline, and it took a lot of becoming who God wants me to be for you guys and for myself, to be a better person for myself, because I can't love my neighbor if I don't fully love myself. Thank you to my coach for dwelling and teaching that for in me for a lot of times. But I ended up becoming a life coach, and then I also ended up with being awarded with um, becoming a collaborative author. And I just think it's so important to me because as a just country girl walking in tradition, not even looking anything outside of life, because I was just, you know, not perfect, but a married woman, and my life was me, my daughter, and my husband. So when I lost my husband, that rocked my world. And I just want to let you know, if he can do it for me, he can do it for you as well. I also would be double remiss if I didn't tell you that I just had a situation, and I want to be very discreet with this one because, as a single mother, but as a mother, period, it's my job to always protect my daughter. So a lot of times I don't even talk about her, but she just went through a situation, and it was the anniversary of her father's death, and it was just having an impact on her schooling. School is at the end. She's tired. She's in her junior year. And, she was getting stressed out even though she maintains over a 3.0. She's a great kid. She has had to learn to be mature because of, losing her dad at a young age and now being given such a great responsibility. Well, she went on to we kind of lagged off a little bit the week or the anniversary. She was dealing with her dad's death, and she, within this last week of getting ready to almost, she has another week before they get out of school, she kind of dropped the ball on some things. Well, she dropped the ball within the parameters that she was supposed to be doing it. But, this is her junior year, so there's times that she's up 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. She's very tired, submitting assignments, and getting it done, but she had dropped the ball within class, just attendance and class time. And the consequence that she was going to get from that, I thought, was quite severe, and I don't want to get into all more specifics than that, but because it was a dramatic consequence that she was going to get, considering that she's not a troubled student. She does what she's supposed to do. And, we wrote up our, rebuttal. And in writing our rebuttal, we apologize for any negligence on our part. And I went on into, I put some things together as a mother, you know, because it's almost 20 years of a businesswoman, as just a mother that goes to war for her kids, because that's who we are. Um, you know, I sent the message the morning that I was supposed to have the meeting at her school. And that was like 6 o'clock in the morning. So I wasn't supposed to have the meeting until like 8 o'clock, but I wanted them to have all of the facts prior to me having the meeting. And so I went to lay back down. So before I had to actually get online for work, because this was my last day being online for work, and I was going to be spending it at my child's school, because that's what we do as mothers. But I went back and I was like, let me make sure everything is attached, that they have it. And I happened to see a message from this particular faculty person that said, here's my cell phone, give me a call. And he said, you know, a few things to me, you know, about her being a good student, and he wished that they had more mothers out there like me to advocate for their children. But essentially, he told me the situation is okay. I don't have to worry about the consequence that we thought that we were going to, or that my daughter was going to experience. And I just want to take the time, right, Father. Thank you, Lord, for taking care of my child. I love the fact, Lord. I thank you. I glorify your name that you uh, provided opportunities and open doors and coaches for me, and led me to being a coach and led me to being a collaborative author. But you know me at my core, Father. And next to my love for you, all of those things pale next to me loving my child. And Lord, I just thank you. I glorify your name. So the doors that God opens for us all the time may not just be tangible doors, but it be those doors that, like I said, when it comes to being a mom, next to my love for Christ is one of the most important things. But He gives us good things as well too as we walk in His purpose. He opens the right door for where we need to be, whether it be in the marketplace or at the church, or whether it be both, to be a great representation of Him, so other fish can come to Him. And also too, because oftentimes we think in the body of Christ we don't have to talk to other people in the body of Christ because they should already understand that, and sometimes that is not the case. So you're also a fisher for not just people who don't know Christ, but those who maybe learned of Him but really had more of religion than they had relationship. But at any rate, when I think about consequences, going back to my daughter's story, that takes me back into my next point. As a people of God, we are not condemned. Romans 8:1 tells us that, but we are convicted. And just like I had to tell with my daughter, and you know, she doesn't not get to not face consequences of her actions because she didn't intend to do it, and I'm not a mother. I'm a very laid back mom, especially with us being without her dad going on 4 years. I'm very probably more sensitive than I should be. She's probably just a little bit more spoiled than she should be. um, but we're not condemned. We're convicted, though. However, and one of the things that we did, every date that was missed or that was in question, we went and we looked at emails and documentations where my daughter was able to show, I readily communicate with my teachers and they readily communicate back to her. So it worked itself out, but we are convicted even with that. And the one thing I had to tell her is, even though you're doing what you're supposed to do, you still have to do it within the parameters that we've been given. And so that's for somebody. I'm using my child as an example, but as I feel like that's also for an adult as well. Sometimes we can do things in two steps, and if you've been given the autonomy to do that, maybe at work or so, go for it. Do it in 2 steps when other people want to do it in 20, you know. But if they say it, you still have to do it within the parameters that we've been given. And so that's for somebody, I'm using my child as an example, but as I feel like that's also for an adult as well. Sometimes we can do things in 2 steps. And if you've been given the autonomy to do that, maybe at work or so, go for it. Do it in 2 steps when other people want to do it in 20, you know. But if they say it has to be at least 20 steps, well, listen, part of the character of God, you can always suggest and say, well, I know these 2 steps. Is that okay? But if they want you to do the 20 steps in the end, you know, I believe it's Romans 13 that tells us we have to obey, authority, So again, this God, he's trying to show out. So those things are a culmination of everything that I experienced this year when it came to walking in purpose, and God was hitting me in every facet of my life. So if you're denied, it's not a total denial, you're just delayed. You will open up to other doors, and other doors that don't always just mean other people. Like I gave the example with my child, that sometimes it's favored opportunities. Sometimes he starts to give you more gifts in you when you start to walk more in confidence. Like, yeah, I am a child of the king, and I can start a YouTube channel. Okay, so my next thing that he wanted me to tell you is sometimes you have to go by yourself. When I think about one of those doors that closed, the major door that closed, I was hoping and thinking I needed the backing and the support of a system. And I think a lot of that, I'll be honest with you, I was still in the midst of healing and felt like I didn't really have that backing the way I needed, because I didn't have my late husband anymore. So all of that was an emotional jumble of things that was going on with me, but yet and still, in the midst of all of that, God was calling my name to walk in purpose. And the way I started has not been the way I ended, which has been great. But I want you to understand, so sometimes it gets messy, sometimes it gets muddy, but even if you're broken, God is still calling you. Now, a lot of religious people will tell you, have a spirit of excellence. So say it this way, look this way. And I agree with that because we want to represent God well. But there are times that sometimes things are emotional. And I'll take my example. When I walked in purpose for you, it was a very personal subject that I started talking about. And why the content of what I was saying, my feelings were true to myself. How I was relaying it verbally came off ugly. Um, and that was never my intent. My intent was never to be vengeful, but I was hurting, especially after having previous conversations about the Lord is telling me to do this and feeling like I'm out here by myself. Well, but the very first thing is you're not by yourself. Even if it's just you and the Lord, you have all you need. So sometimes you have to be a team of one. He will increase your teammates. Don't worry, you know. But sometimes God needs you to know, and He not only needs to show you so you can understand He really is sovereign, He really is in control of everything, but He has to show others. It was me all by myself who did this, not based on man's contact. Okay, so that's number 4. And then number 5 is, as a child of the King, we get busy doing His work because, as I've been telling you the entire time, we are fisher of men, but we also get busy having rest. I believe it's Matthew 11 and 28 that tells us His yoke is easy, His burdens are light. So even though we go through these hard, tough struggles and seasons, I have to be, I would be remiss again in not telling you, it's seasonal. And for me, it took, when I can look back, and I've had some great things that have happened. I just celebrated the life 4-year anniversary of my late husband. I had some wonderful things happen in between those 4 years, but I was burdened a lot for 4 years, and now just really seeing the season and tide turning. So I just want to tell somebody, hold on. But it won't always be this way. Ephesians, I believe it's the third chapter, talks about there's a season for this, it's a season for crime, it's a season for pain, it's a season for joy. So you will go through different things and you will go through different phases in life. But God, as being His glorious inheritance, His purpose in your life is not for you to always be sad, not for you to always be depressed. I've had my share of feeling depressed, even questionable, if I can be so frank and in my candor of, even almost questioning my sanity at times. But every step of the way, God has been there. And I could not do this channel today. I could not come to you guys today if I wasn't totally authentically feeling better, because that's what I wanted to do this go around. God has given me another chance, and this time I come to you healed. Now I know that heal is a transformational. It happens, day by day. We have to transform our mind, and I learned that from both of my coaches. But and that's in the Bible too. I believe that's Romans, that it tells us that we have to transform our minds daily. Um, but the place that I am in today is so much better than what I was a year ago. So I hope that these different steps or these different events that have happened and occurred in my life in the past and the current help you to understand, or continually to be motivated and purpose to keep going, because God has something great for you on the other side that will not only, like the world does, compliment you and award you, but it will award you with simultaneously also helping others. And in God's world, there's a pie and there's a cake that is big enough for everybody. It is not discriminatory. It does not leave you out because you're a woman. It does not leave you out because you're overweight. It does not leave you out because you're black. It does not leave you out because you're a certain age. God doesn't work that way. Man does. So I wish you all the best. I look forward to seeing you next month. Before I get out of here, I'm going to change to something a little bit more comfortable, and I'm going to be obedient to what the Lord told me, and we're going to cook tuna fish. Yes, cook, fry tuna fish. So stay tuned with me for the next couple of 5 minutes or so. Welcome back. Thank you for continuing to rock with me, rather. And so, listen, I am cooking fried tuna fish, and this is how the concoction is going to look. So, I'm going to do two because I just got this new concoction that many of you guys may know about, and some of you may not know about, but it's called an air fryer, and this is what happens when your teenager has your credit card or your debit card, rather. But no, this was a actual wonderful gift for my kid for Mother's Day, and I've had the opportunity to cook a couple of burgers in here. And honestly, if you're looking into, one of those people who are kind of like me, that's a foodie, but still trying to cut away from the grease, the air fryer is really great for that. So I used 2 cans of tuna, and this says chunk light, so it's really down to your preference. And then I used also just 1 egg per 2 cans of tuna. So usually I cook about 4 patties, and a patty per tuna can. Today I'm just gonna cook two. I'm gonna cook one in the air fryer, and then I'm gonna turn around and we're gonna actually do one on the stove, just in case you don't have an air fryer. And normally how I cook these tuna patties is usually on the stove. So I wanted to do it that way as well too. The air fryer also allows you to cook your normal foods at a shorter period of time. So again, after I got changed and got in my more comfortable setting to do this part of the video with you guys, the Lord was talking to me and he was like, no, go back and say what you said. So yes, I do enjoy eating in the kitchen, and yes, I do wash the dishes in the kitchen. Those are my main jobs. But I had to learn, after becoming a widow, how to do a little bit more cooking in the kitchen. So this is just one of those recipes that I've used for snacks every now and then, or if you want to have it for dinner. Unfortunately, kitchen, but very little. My main job really is to eat, but he just wanted me to go back and say, like, no, you know how to do some things in the kitchen. So you can either take your spoon. I'm sorry. So that was 2 cans of tuna, 1 egg raw, and I used 4 things of mustard and 4 things of mayo. Now, I usually prefer Miracle Whip. Again, if you're trying to cut the calories versus just regular mayo. My daughter got mayo this time with the grocery, so that's why I have mayo in here. But of course, Miracle Whip is a lesser calorie alternative. And you can either mix it with the spoon, but I'm just going to go ahead and just dig my hand in. And I drained the tuna before putting it in here. I drained both cans, and then I just poured it in here. So I'm just going to mix it up like this. Again, this is just 2 cans, and 1 can is usually for one patty. And so all of the ingredients that I use, I also diced up a couple of onions as well and put it in here. I usually am a simple eater. I don't like a lot of flavors. I like to keep it regular, and how I would normally make my raw tuna. If I was having a raw tuna sandwich, the only difference with this egg, instead of it being a raw egg, I would boil the egg. I use those same ingredients. So kind of simple when it comes to um, putting things together in the kitchen. An alternative to salt and pepper is just regular seasoned salt. I did about 3 dashes of this all around because I don't like it, again, to be overwhelming, but I also do like to have a little bit of flavor. So when you get done, even when it's drained, it's going to look like this, much like how it would look if you were just eating a raw tuna sandwich. And I just put it together, and it's going to be very wet, and depending on how you like it, because this will all fry down, so it's going to be very wet and messy, and I'm just kind of pressing it together to kind of let it drain a little bit. um but as soon as it starts to fry, it's going to fry up really quickly. Now, for the air fryer is usually, like I said before, cooks quicker than it does on the stove. With the air fryer, I'm going to open it up. And again, this is kind of new to me. And so okay, I'm going to choose fish just to see what happens.
Press power button.
Power. And then let's do fish. And that's on 325. You think so, Harm? Okay. And
just put it in there.
So I got to put it in here. So I'm just going to drop it on the spinner. And it says 15 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and let that stay in there for 15 minutes. Yes, it says 15 minutes. And in the meantime, we're going to turn it around, and then we're going to go to the stove, just in case you don't have an air fryer. And that's, again, normally how I usually cook this recipe. And so now we're at the stove, and this is my alternative to grease. I am a country girl, so if you like fried fish, I know normally that we would use. Sorry, my glasses are falling off my face there. I know normally that we would use grease, but as an alternative, this is just Pam. And I do this with eggs as well too. As an alternative to grease and butter sometimes. So I just put that in the pan as so. Like that. I've already put the stove on medium high. And again, the same concoction, the same mix. I think I made the one over in the air fryer a little bit bigger than I did with this one. But the same thing, I just drained it out a little bit as I press it together. So it looks really mushy and disgusting. But I promise you, when you eat it, You're like, oh my God, this tastes like fried fish for those people who are fish lovers. And again, if you're looking for an alternative, a lower fat alternative, or just a quick snack, you don't feel like cooking at the stove all day, here is an alternative. So I'm just going to place that and turn this up a little bit on the stove as that cooks, and then once we get the finished touches we will show you. So for the air fryer, I put it on for about 15 minutes. We're probably going to cut that a little bit shorter because honestly once this starts to fry it usually takes about 10 minutes back and forth. So I'll let you know what the time is, and when we get a final picture for you, as you can hear it's starting to fry, so it fries really quick and then you just need to flip it. Then we'll show you what the final touches and taste look like. Okay, thanks for rocking with me. So the great thing about the air fryer is that it cooks on the top first. So if you're looking just to make sure that it's still cooking, it should be brown on the top first versus the oven where you kind of got to gauge it and make sure that it turns. But I wanted to come back to you guys and talk about Jonah and the well, because I don't want to say only people, but when I read that story, you know, if you're one of those persons who have that relationship with God and you're always hearing from him, you know, Jonah was a runner, and much like myself, it's like I finally got to the point in life where it's like I don't have any choice. I have to do what the Lord says. So if he says we're cooking fish, we're cooking fish. So it's such a funny story because he had to go on, and it's Jonah chapters 1 through 3. He had to go on and tell the people and prophesy to the people because that's what the Lord told him to do about their ways and not what they were doing correctly. And he ran so much so until he got in the mouth of a fish. So I just found that story to be humorous. I always find sometimes that the Lord has a sense of humor, and you know he always gives us, like I told you earlier, parables for alternatives. So okay, so this is how it looks on the stove. Now I personally prefer it a little dark because I don't want it. If I want raw tuna, I eat raw tuna, but I want it to taste like, you know, fried fish. So this is how it looks from the stove. And funny enough, we were peeking in on the air fryer and it's not as dark. So we're still waiting on the air fryer a little bit more too. And maybe because we put it on fish, and maybe we probably should have just put it on basic. But this is how it looks on the stove. And honestly, if you are a fish person, it really does eat great. So that's that one, and just keep sticking with me as far as the one on the air fryer is concerned. And as you can see, there's some onions in there. So thank you for your patience and thank you for rocking with me. So listen, I usually just make a sandwich. I put like a little strip of mustard on mine. Of course, you know, if you want to put any other ingredients and vegetables in your tuna sandwich to make it your tuna sandwich, but this one is just personal to me. So my daughter just took the one out of the air fryer, and as you can see, they look very different. I'm almost scared to eat this. It's very it almost looks like a tuna melt, but it is hot. But I guess it's the country in me that kind of likes a little bit more burnt texture. But let me try it. Okay, so the air fryer is more juicy. So it brings more of the flavors than the actual fryer does. So it's actually good, and actually it left it a little bit more thicker, so you don't have to use as much tuna that you would with a very on the frying pan. And so one of these may be okay. So if this, to me, the air fryer feels more like a medium done versus the frying on the stove is actually a well done. So I'll be eating both this evening. I actually my daughter has a play tonight, or a chorus recital tonight, and we were actually going to go out after the chorus recital, but they decided, as you know how high school is, that they're going out afterwards. So I had to come up with something for me to eat tonight. So this is not only a snack, but this is my dinner. So either way, I hope you enjoy both alternatives, and again, make it to your liking and the ingredients that you like. But I'll be eating both of these tonight, to get my nourishment. And because it is fish, it is still healthy for you. So, again, I hope you enjoy both of the tastes. I hope you enjoy this teaching in reference to. Us all being fishers of men, us learning more biblically about the Bible, us learning more about purpose, and just those tips that I wanted to leave with you guys, just on as you walk in purpose, the things that can happen. In retrospect, don't give up. Keep going. Because we are fishers of men, of each other. All right. Well, I love you. God bless you all. Thank you so much for your time and attention. And I cannot wait until we do this again next month. Okay. And it will not be cooking. I'm sorry. That was the fingers of my teenage daughter who's helping me as I film this. But it will not be cooking, but it will be a biblical story. But unless he comes back and says I need another recipe that I have to cook. But I hope you enjoy this. See you next time.